This is the Scrap Metal and Commodities Recycling Report by BENLEE, Roll-Off, Lugger, and Open-Top Trailers, and Raleigh Goldsboro Metal Recycling, April 4th, 2016. We're taping this from the floor of the largest recycling show in the world, taking place starting tonight, right here in Las Vegas. In this report, last week commodities had some small up and some down movement, except for export ferrous prices, which are actually up quite a bit. U.S. steel production rose a bit and remains near 6-month highs. With tariffs kicking in, auto sales high, and housing improving, production may increase further in the weeks to come. Oil prices, after a few months of increases, came down last week. This week, both Janet Yellen of the Federal Reserve and Goldman Sachs, as reported by CNBC, both reported that the major drop in oil prices was clearly having a positive effect on the consumer. They also said that low oil prices are having more of a negative effect on the global economy than had been expected, which we're seeing in these following charts. Oil rigs, which consume large amounts of steel, had their count come down yet again. The count is now 362, which is about 78% lower than the 1609 of 18 months ago. This has caused thousands of layoffs in the U.S. steel industry due to less steel being used in these rigs. Scrap steel ferrous prices will look very different next week on this chart, but they're showing steady here. Reports are that in Chicago, much of their scrap ferrous sold 72 months ago at up $50 a gross ton. U.S. increased steel production, increased exports of scrap, the closing of dozens of scrap yards, and the low prices, meaning low flows to many scrap yards, have caused shortages. Prices may be up $40 to $50 per gross ton or more nationally. This is one of the largest one-month increases in years. Hot-rolled coil steel prices are on their way up as well. Expect to see prices continue to rise in the weeks to come. With exports being down, mainly due to tariffs, this is giving U.S. steel mills significant room to increase prices. Stainless steel scrap prices have not risen in recent weeks, but they will probably have to rise along with steel prices in the coming weeks. Copper prices, after a few weeks of being in a tight range, fell for the week to a low not seen in about a month. Aluminum prices rose for the week on news of shortages in certain areas, but massive amounts of aluminum are still being produced by China and Russia, and as well as others, which are holding down prices in other areas. With aluminum inventories at about 7 months low as seen on this chart, this is a factor in increasing aluminum prices due to short supplies. U.S. car and truck sales were down a bit in March, but all are still forecasting another record or close to a record year in 2016. Again, as a reminder, this measure is sales, not production. Automotive production is moving to Mexico at frankly an alarming rate. The U.S. ISM, Institute of Supplier Management reading of manufacturing, is a reading of manufacturing in the U.S. that looks at expansion and contraction. Anything over 50 is expansion. At 51.8 last month, it was the first expansion since last August. The strong U.S. dollar and a huge contraction in the oil fields has been a major drag on the economy. We're now seeing some stabilization and reversal of this drag. When looking at this chart of China's Purchasing Managers Index, we see that it also had a nice move up in this past month. This was the first time in months it was above 50, which means expansion. The unemployment rate for March in the U.S. rose a bit to 5.0%, up from 4.9%, but has been coming down for years. 215,000 jobs were created, which is a major positive for the U.S. economy, with construction jobs up by 37,000, but mining jobs were down by 12,000. Importantly though, manufacturing jobs were down 29,000, and millions of manufacturing jobs have not come back after the crash of 2008. As said last week, Premier Truck Sales and Rental was BENLEE's first lugger customer and will now be renting lugger trucks. Behind me is the first unit for rent, and on the other side is our terrific roll-off truck replacement trailer, the Super Mini. With that, we hope all have a safe and profitable week. My name is Greg Brown, and for those of you that are here, have a great time in Las Vegas and come see us at the BENLEE Premier booth.